Okay, let's talk about the absolutely wild ride the market took back in March of 2026. Seriously, this was a month that gave investors total whiplash, swinging from just pure terror to complete euphoria and then, well, right into a state of mass confusion.
So that brings us to the big question, right? How on earth does a market go into a complete meltdown and then have a massive party in the very same month? It just sounds impossible. But to get it, we've got to look at how the month kicked off, with a geopolitical bombshell that sent shockwaves all around the globe.
All right, Act 1 of our story is just widespread panic. In early March, one single event happening in this tiny little stretch of water basically threatened to throw the entire global economy off a cliff. To really get what's going on, you have to understand the geography. The Strait of Hormuz. I mean, this is one of the most strategically important places on the entire planet. Think of it like the jugular vein for the world's oil supply. If this thing gets clogged, everybody, and I mean everybody, feels the pain. And just how much pain are we talking about? We're talking 14 million barrels of oil every single day. According to Kepler's data, that's almost a third of all crude oil that's moved by sea. All of it has to squeeze through this one tiny little choke point. You just can't overstate how critical this is. And that's exactly what happened. The reports started flying that Iran had shut it down, closed this vital artery. And just like that, the fuse was lit. The global market reaction was, well, pretty much instantaneous. There was no hesitation. No, let's wait and see. Traders hit the sell button, and they hit it hard. The panic that started in the Middle East spread like a wildfire, hitting Asia next. And if you want to see just how severe it was, look no further than South Korea's Kospi. It plummeted over 7%. This wasn't just a bad day, folks. This was its worst trading day in 19 months. And it wasn't an isolated incident. Not at all. Japan's Nikkei, Hong Kong's Hang Seng, markets in mainland China, Australia, it was a domino effect, just a sea of red across the board. The fear was absolutely real, and it was everywhere. But then, just as it felt like the world was bracing for this massive energy crisis, the whole story just completely flipped. All that panic selling turned into a buying frenzy, and it was all kicked off by a single social media post. This right here, this was it, the thing that turned the entire ship around. A post on Truth Social from former President Donald Trump. It suggested that, hey, maybe we're de-escalating. He talked about productive conversations and even a potential complete and total resolution. And so on March 23rd, this one message hits the internet, and boom, everything changes. All that fear of a wider war, of a catastrophic oil shock, it just seemed to evaporate. The market's mood did a complete 180 in just a few hours. The result on Wall Street was this incredibly powerful, widespread rally. You had the Dow, the S&P, the NASDAQ, everything just surged on this news. You could practically feel the relief. I mean, the Dow alone skyrocketed 631 points. That is a massive number, and it perfectly captures just how relieved the market was. The party was officially back on. And let's put that into perspective. This wasn't just some random good day. For the S&P 500, it was the single best day it had had since this whole conflict started. All of that fear that had been baked into prices for days, gone, wiped out in a single trading session. Okay, so everyone's breathing a sigh of relief, right? Not so fast, because this is where the story gets its crazy twist. This is where the whiplash was about to really hit. And it brings us to this really crucial question. Was this massive, multi-billion-dollar rally built on actual, solid diplomatic progress, or was it all just built on hope, on a rumor? Because what we ended up with was a flat-out contradiction. On one side, you have Trump's post claiming productive conversations. But on the other side, you have reports from Iran's Fars news agency saying no direct-indirect contact with Trump. Two completely opposite stories. So, who is telling the truth? Well, the crazy part is, in that moment, the market just decided to believe the story it wanted to be true. Despite these conflicting reports, the rally held on. The optimism, at least for a little while, was way stronger than the facts. So, after a month of pure, unadulterated chaos, what can we actually learn from all this? What does this whole episode of Market Mayhem really teach us about the world we're in now?
Well, let's just recap the roller coaster. We started the month with a market driven entirely by fear. Then, on the morning of March 23rd, we had a market driven by pure euphoria from one post. And by that afternoon, we had a market that was just swimming in confusion. So here are the big takeaways. First, geopolitical news can change everything in a blink of an eye. Second, information, and this is so important, misinformation, travels at the speed of a social media post now. Third, and this is key, how people feel about the market, the sentiment, can sometimes be way more powerful than the hard numbers. And finally, you might as well get used to it. This kind of volatility is the new normal.
Which leaves us with one last thing to chew on. If one unverified social media post can swing billions and billions of dollars in a single day, are we really investing based on the true value of companies anymore? Or are we all just trading on vibes?